You walk out to the garden in the morning and there they are. The tomato plants you put in 6 weeks ago still the same size they were in week 2. The pepper seedlings that came up strong and then just stopped. The zucchini with its big leaves and not a single fruit on it yet. The bean row that should be climbing by now, sitting flat and yellow-green where it ought to be dark. You watered them, you weeded around them, you bought the bag of fertilizer from the garden center and followed the directions on the back. And still the garden looks like it is thinking about growing rather than doing it. Every year the same thing. You spend the money on the transplants and the seeds and the bags of soil amendment and the spray bottles of this and that, and you end up with a garden that produces just enough to feel like it tried. The neighbor down the road with the big vegetable patch, rows of tomatoes loaded so heavy the cages are bending, zucchini so thick you cannot use them all, beans coming on faster than the family can eat them, you have wondered what he is doing different, what is in his soil, what he knows that you do not. Now I want you to sit with this. There is a solution you can mix in a watering can in your own kitchen from 3 things most folks already have in the house, that when you water your vegetables with it once, sets off a chain reaction in the soil around the roots that changes how the plant feeds for weeks. Not a branded fertilizer, not a synthetic chemical. The same basic chemistry the old market gardeners used before the fertilizer companies existed, and the same chemistry the soil scientists have been writing about in their journals for the last 30 years. The plants do not just grow faster, they feed deeper, they put fruit on earlier, and they keep producing longer into the season than a plant that never got it. My name is Amos Stoltzfus. I am Amish and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My family has kept a kitchen garden and a market garden on this same ground for 4 generations. My grandmother grew enough on a 1/4 acre to feed a household of 9 and sell the rest at the roadside stand by the mailbox. She did not use synthetic fertilizer, and she did not use anything from the garden center. She used what the old gardeners always used, which is the living chemistry of the soil itself turned in your favor with a few simple things you can mix in a bucket. I am going to be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am, including telling you what the bold title really means and where it has its honest limits. Vegetables will not grow overnight. That is not what happens, and I will not tell you it does. What happens is this. When you give the roots what they are actually hungry for, the plant stops spending its energy trying to find food and starts spending that energy making growth and making fruit. A plant that has been slowly starving for one mineral it needs does not look sick. It just looks stuck. The moment it gets what it was missing, it moves. Folks who have never seen a hungry plant suddenly fed will say the growth looks immediate because against weeks of nothing, a week of real movement feels like overnight. That is what the title means. Honest is more useful than impressive. Before I go further, for the folks who want all of this, every method I have shown on this channel and the ones I have not gotten to yet, all in one place, I have put it together in a book at my website, amosstoltzfus.com. I will not push it again in the video. If you want it, it is there. Now, let me show you the solution. Stay with me. Let me first tell you what is actually happening in your garden soil, because once you understand it, the rest of this makes plain sense, and you will know exactly why the 3 ingredients do what they do. A vegetable plant feeds through its roots. The roots reach into the soil and pull in water and dissolved minerals. The minerals the plant needs most for fast growth and heavy fruiting are nitrogen for the leaves and the green parts, phosphorus for the roots and the flowers and the fruit set, and potassium for the overall strength of the plant, its ability to move water through its own body and fight off stress. Most gardeners know this. NPK. It is on every bag of fertilizer at the garden center. What most gardeners do not know is what happens between the fertilizer and the root, because the plant cannot simply absorb dry mineral out of the ground. The mineral has to be dissolved in water, and it has to be in a form the root hair can actually take in. And this is where most garden soil fails the plant quietly and invisibly. The mineral may be there, sitting in the soil, but the soil biology, the bacteria, the fungi, the microscopic life that breaks minerals into plant-available form is low. Or the soil pH is slightly wrong, and the mineral is locked in a form the root cannot use. Or the soil is hard and the water runs off before it can carry anything down to the root zone. The plant is sitting on top of food it cannot eat, and it shows exactly the way a person who cannot digest their food shows it. Thin, slow, pale, getting enough but not thriving. The solution I am going to show you does three things at once. It delivers available minerals directly in dissolved form so the root can use them immediately. It feeds the soil biology so the biology keeps releasing more minerals on its own for weeks after, and it slightly adjusts the chemistry of the water going in so that whatever minerals are already in your soil become more available than they were before. Now let me show you what goes into it and why each piece matters. The first ingredient is wood ash. The ash left in the bottom of any wood fire, a fireplace, a wood stove, a bonfire pit, a burn barrel. Plain gray wood ash. Wood ash is what is left after all the carbon burns away and the minerals that were in the wood remain. And wood is full of minerals, potassium chief among them, but also calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and more than a dozen trace elements that vegetables need in small amounts. When you dissolve wood ash in water, those minerals go into solution. You pour that water on your garden and the plant roots have dissolved minerals waiting right at the root hair. No breakdown required. No waiting for the soil biology to convert them. Available immediately. This is the potassium hit that makes a plant suddenly able to move water through itself efficiently, to set flowers, to hold fruit, to resist the wilting that comes with dry days. Old gardeners called ash water the plant tonic. They were right about what it did. They just did not have the word potassium for it. The second ingredient is liquid molasses, the unsulfured kind you find at any grocery store. Blackstrap is the best if you can get it. Any unsulfured molasses works. Now, folks hear molasses and they think sugar, and they wonder what sugar has to do with vegetables. The answer is not the sugar itself. The answer is what the soil bacteria do with the sugar. Molasses is a dense, complex food for the microorganisms in your soil. When you pour a small amount of molasses into the garden, the bacterial population in the root zone can multiply many times over in a matter of days. And it is those bacteria that take the locked minerals in your soil and convert them into plant-available forms. One watering with molasses does not just feed the plant. It feeds the soil life that feeds the plant for weeks to come. The old market gardeners poured their kitchen molasses water onto the beds and called it waking the ground up. That is exactly what it does. The third ingredient is apple cider vinegar, the raw kind with the mother in it if you have it, plain if you do not. Vinegar is acidic, and this is the piece most folks are surprised by. Here is why it matters. Most vegetable plants, tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, do best in soil that sits between pH 6.0 and 6.8, slightly acidic. In that range, the minerals they need are in their most available form, and the soil biology works at its best. Many garden soils, especially in areas with hard water or heavy clay, drift slightly alkaline over time. Not enough to kill the plant, enough to lock up the iron and the manganese and the phosphorus so the plant cannot reach them. A small amount of apple cider vinegar in the watering solution nudges the water you are putting down toward that sweet spot. It does not change your soil pH permanently, and it is not meant to. It makes the watering itself slightly acidic so that the dissolved minerals in the water stay in solution instead of binding back to the soil particles before the root can take them. It is a small thing that makes every other thing in the bucket work better. 3 ingredients: ash for the immediate mineral hit, molasses for the soil biology, vinegar for the chemistry of delivery. Now here is the recipe. For every gallon of water in your watering can, you want 2 tablespoons of wood ash stirred in and let sit for 10 minutes so the minerals dissolve. 1 tablespoon of unsulfured liquid molasses. 1 tablespoon of raw apple cider vinegar. Stir it all together. The water will go slightly dark from the ash and the molasses, the color of weak tea. That is right. That is what you want. Let it sit another 5 minutes so everything is fully mixed. Then water your vegetables at the base of the plant, slow and steady, enough that you see the water beginning to reach the soil around the roots, not just the very surface. 1 gallon per mature plant, roughly, or 2 gallons across a 4-foot bed of seedlings, once a week for the first 3 weeks. After that, once every 2 weeks through the season. Now, I know some of you are reaching for a pencil to get those amounts written down. You do not need to. The 2 tablespoons of ash, the tablespoon of molasses, the tablespoon of vinegar, the timing for the first 3 weeks and the rest of the season, every number I just gave you is written down plain in the book at my website, the same one I mentioned at the start. So put the pencil down and keep watching, because the next part is where most folks go wrong and where the method either works wonderfully or gives you nothing at all, and I will not have you on the wrong side of that. Where most people fail with any liquid soil treatment is the preparation of the soil before it goes in. And I owe you the honest word on this because the solution I just gave you is powerful and cheap and works, and it cannot do its work in concrete. If your garden soil is hard, compacted, and cracks in dry weather, the water from your watering can runs along the surface and does not reach the root zone at all. The minerals dissolve in the bucket and then run off the top of the bed before any root can use them. This is not a failure of the recipe. It is the same failure you would have pouring any fertilizer onto hard ground. Water must be able to move through the soil. That is the first condition. The remedy is simple and old. Before you apply the solution for the first time, take a garden fork and push it into the soil around the base of your plants to a depth of 6 or 8 inches. Rock it gently back and forth. Do not dig. Do not turn the soil over. Just open channels for the water, every 6 inches across the bed. This takes 5 minutes and it changes everything. The water goes down where the roots are instead of sideways to the path. The second condition is that the soil around the plant needs to be moist before you apply the solution. Not soaking, not bone dry. Moist. A dry root zone will suck the first water in too fast and the minerals do not have time to be taken up. Water the bed plainly first if it is dry. Let it soak in for half an hour. Then apply the ash and molasses solution on top of the moist ground slowly. The root zone is then ready to receive it, and the minerals have time to sit in the root hair zone long enough to be absorbed. Now the honest scope of what this does and what it does not do, because I will not let you believe more than is true. This solution is outstanding for plants that are stuck, plants that have been growing slowly, that have pale leaves, that have been setting few flowers, that went into hard or depleted soil. It is also very good as a season opener for a new bed you want to wake up before planting. And it is real and honest help for container vegetables, potted tomatoes, and peppers on a patio where the soil in the pot has been depleted by several weeks of watering and the roots have nowhere else to reach. What it does not do is replace composted organic matter in your soil. A garden bed that has been built up over years with good compost, leaf mold, old manure has a rich, deep soil biology that already does most of what this solution does. The solution wakes up and speeds up what is there. If there is nothing there, the solution is a meal given to a patient who cannot yet sit up to eat it. Build your soil with compost every year. The solution works on top of that foundation. It also does not substitute for sunlight. I have seen gardens where the soil is excellent and the care is excellent and the vegetables still struggle because a tree has grown up on the south side and the bed is now in shade for most of the day. Vegetables need full sun, 6 hours minimum. 8 is better. A tomato plant in the shade will not fruit no matter what you water it with. Know your light before you blame the soil. And for very alkaline soils, heavy clay, or areas with extremely hard water, the vinegar in this solution gives some help, but may not be enough on its own. A soil test from your county extension office, a few dollars and a mailing envelope, will tell you your exact pH and what it needs. If your soil is above 7.5, you may need to work in elemental sulfur or peat moss over a season or two to bring it into the range where vegetables thrive. No single watering will fix a structural soil problem, but the Extension Office can tell you exactly what you have and exactly what it needs, and that knowledge is worth more than any bottle from the garden center. Now I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Think about what a bag of synthetic vegetable fertilizer from the garden center costs you. $8, $12. Some of the branded ones run $25. You apply it according to the directions, which means rebuying it several times a season. And what is in it? Synthesized nitrogen, synthesized phosphorus, synthesized potassium in a chemical salt form that the plant can take up but that does nothing for the soil biology underneath. Some synthetic fertilizers used year after year actually suppress the soil bacteria that do the slow, deep work of feeding plants naturally. You grow a plant that is dependent on the bottle instead of a plant that draws on a living soil. And the bottle costs more every year. The three things I just showed you cost almost nothing. A cup of wood ash from the fireplace you would otherwise spread on the lawn or throw away. A tablespoon of molasses from a jar that costs $2 at the grocery store and lasts you a whole season. A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar from the bottle you already have in the pantry. The cost of a single application is less than the cost of a single cup of coffee. And the ash feeds the minerals, the molasses wakes the soil biology, and the biology keeps working for weeks after you put the bottle away. There is no money in telling a gardener to use the cold ash from his own wood stove. There is no money in a jar of molasses that costs $2 and treats a whole season of garden beds. There is a great deal of money in selling that same gardener a new bag of branded fertilizer every 6 weeks, season after season, with a picture of a perfect tomato on the front of it. So nobody runs a commercial for wood ash water. Nobody advertises molasses in the garden. And a whole generation of gardeners has grown up thinking that good vegetables require a trip to the garden center every month. They do not. They never have. My grandmother grew prized tomatoes on wood ash and kitchen scraps, and she never once read the back of a fertilizer bag. The knowledge has been in the kitchen the whole time. Most folks have just never been told to look for it. So here is what I want you to do this week. Collect a cup of wood ash from your fireplace or your fire pit, or ask a neighbor who burns wood for a handful. Dig out the molasses from the back of the pantry shelf. Grab the apple cider vinegar. Fill a gallon watering can with water. Stir in 2 tablespoons of ash, 1 tablespoon of molasses, 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Let it rest 5 minutes. Take your garden fork and open the soil gently around the base of your most stuck, most struggling plant. Water the dead plane first if it is dry. Then pour the solution slowly at the base. 1 plant. Try it on 1 plant first and watch what the same plant does over the next 10 days compared to the one beside it that got plain water. Most folks do not need any more convincing than that one comparison. Tell me in the comments below what vegetable in your garden has been the most stubborn this season. The tomato that will not set fruit? The pepper that stopped at 6 inches and stayed? The zucchini with all leaf and no squash? Tell me what you are dealing with and tell me what your soil is like. Clay or sandy? Because the folks just starting to work with their soil should hear from the folks who have already been through it. I read every single one. And everything I showed you today, the ratios, the timing, the soil preparation, and the rest of the garden methods I have not had time to get to in this video, it is all written down in the book below in the comments section, for whoever wants it on paper, where they can find it again. Next time, since we have been speaking of how to feed the garden from what you already have, I am going to show you the old way my people make a compost tea from kitchen scraps, the brew that sits for 3 days in a bucket and turns what you would have thrown away into the richest liquid plant food you can put on a garden. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, light the fire, save the ash, and remember that the best fertilizer for your garden has been sitting cold in your wood stove all winter, waiting